Hey there, welcome to Contracts and Chaos. My name's Alyssa.
And I'm Brenna, and we're here to tell you that you are not alone in the mayhem of this real estate industry.
We're keeping it real and sharing our stories, strategies, and successes in today's real estate world.
So come join us every Tuesday while we talk contracts and chaos. Ready, set, go.
Ready, set, go. All right.
Ready, set, go.
So, inventory. Let's talk about it because
What inventory, Alyssa?
There is inventory. So, okay. That's literally what we're going to talk about. Why does it feel like there's no inventory? Because I think the big question is it actually low or does it just feel that way? And there's that inventory illusion. So, of like, you feel like there isn't any. Or for some people, you feel like there's plenty because maybe it's the price point you're at or what your customers are looking for. And there's also like, there's three, I guess, themes to it of like, there's shadow inventory of like, well, you just have to look for it. It's there. There's seller hesitation. So you have sellers who are locked into their golden interest rates. And then you have that hidden demand. Those people you don't know want to buy a house. But I think the important part is, why does it feel like there's still no inventory in some places? Like, why do you feel like that, Brenna? Do you feel like there's no inventory?
Well, so honestly, I know that specifically here in Catawba County, we have more inventory on the market than we have in like a while. Right? And I think that part of it is I'm seeing the same houses longer. And I think that buyers feel the same way, right? Like they're refreshing Zillow and they're like, oh my God, there has not been a new listing in a week. But that's not necessarily true because depending, like you said, like how they have their filters set.
Right.
And if the agents checked all of the boxes in the MLS so they show up under those correct filters, like I think that has something to do with it. Also, again, specifically in my area, we have so much new construction right now.
Yes.
So much new construction. And probably, I have to say, 80-something% of it isn't on the MLS, right?
Right.
Which
is
in-house. It is kind of irritating. It is. But unless you know those builder reps are on their email list and they're dropping that inventory link to you every week, you might not know that there is a single-story house in the Villages at Maiden that just came back available because a buyer walked.
Right.
You know? So the inventory is out there. I know it's out there. It does. For some reason, it feels like it's not where we need it to be. And I think that buyer criteria has changed a lot, too.
Yes.
Now, interest rates right now, as of September 2nd, are the lowest they've been in almost a year, right? But there's still so much hesitation, and the criteria and what they're willing to look at and what they're willing to work on after closing is so much smaller that it makes it feel like there's no options.
Well, and I think buyers, from what I'm experiencing, expect 2008 deals and for sellers to bend over backwards, fix everything, make it perfect. And sellers think it's 2021. And I literally had this come together yesterday at a showing. House is overpriced by at least $20,000, at least. And it needs a new roof, a new HVAC. There's holes in the doors in the house. Like there's caulk around the bathroom, like the faucet in the tub, like old caulk that's turned yellow because the guy didn't install it correctly. And so I'm sorry, no, for $420,000? No.
That's a lot.
Like, we shouldn't be walking into a house at that price point in this area. Now, obviously, it might be different in LA or, I don't know, Chicago or something, but in the Charlotte market for $420,000, I should not have holes in the doors. I should not have icky caulk around the faucet. So, or a roof that's original to a house built in 1999.
Oh my gosh, that's such a big one right now,
well,
especially with insurance.
That's what we were saying. We're like, we're not going to be able to insure this house. The seller's going to have to put a roof on. And the seller's kind of willing, but with a full price offer, we're like, no, because it won't appraise. Like, seller needs to be realistic. So I do think, and like you said, buyers are still very specific because of the interest rates, and that makes it harder. But everyone needs to come to a little bit of reality from what I've experienced. Like, or they, like, there's, I call it like perfection paralysis. And we've talked about that kind of before with agents wanting to start marketing things, and you get that, oh no, it has to be perfect before I can start it. No, just do it. They want the house to be, no matter the budget. Like, someone the other day was at a $250 price point and didn't understand why the house needed work. And I was like, huh?
Well, because, I mean, you think about it, right? $250,000, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to a lot of people. They're like, holy crap, I'm spending this much money. I should get XYZ. But that's just not what the market is sitting at right now. And I have clients right now that they're sub 200 and they're USDA, right? Which is a double whammy, because not only is it very limited in that price range, but then finding properties that A, will qualify for USDA and B, are in a USDA eligible space is crazy. But they are of the mindset, like, this is our first home. Like, we understand that there's going to be work. And I was like, but the problem is some of this work is a problem for your type of funding, you know? And then you've got, like, buyers that are like, oh, well, you know, it is what it is. We'll buy it. And while that's great, it's also not helping set sellers up for, I don't want to say, it's not even price dropping, because that's not the case either. Because when we're looking at the market, especially here, and I'm sure you do too, I'm not seeing a huge number of properties that are selling, you know, for 80% of list value, right? Or list price. Right. They're still selling 95 to 98% of the list price. Now, sometimes that's after they price corrected and they're now priced where they're supposed to be at. Right. But the market is still moving. The people that are finding success right now are the sellers that are like, okay, yeah, I'm going to prep this house. I'm going to do a fresh coat of paint. I'm going to pay a cleaner $750 to deep scrub my baseboards because I haven't done it in 6 years, you know? And they're preparing for that upfront, pricing correctly upfront. I just had a conversation with the seller this past week. I'm like, listen, where we were when we planned on listing this, mind you, the beginning of June, the end of May, which obviously has not happened. This looks very different now coming into September. Very different.
Right? Even just not even 6 weeks ago. If we go back 45 days, the market was much different. Much different.
Yep. And now I'm like, you don't want to set yourself up where you're chasing this week's price drops, right? You want to set yourself up so that we can get contract and get off the market. You don't want to price like up here, and then because all of these houses around them have been sitting on the market 60, 90, up to 150 days with consistent price drops, do we price to be like comparable to those houses now because they're going to continue to decrease? Or are we looking not futuristic, but kind of where the market is headed? You know, right? And that's not to say that the market is going down. The problem is there's so many sellers, like you said, they're still stuck in 2021. And they are priced at the very tip top of where they could possibly be, and expecting multiple offers over asking.
Right. And I think the other thing, I'm going to put some of this on agents. We're unintentionally feeding the illusion that there is low inventory, because we're not finding off-market properties or coming soon, things that other agents have mentioned that may not be actually listed as coming soon yet, or price improvable homes. Maybe there is a house that's overpriced that's been sitting 65 days. So if you're only looking at what your search is sending them and you're not going to look at those other things or talk to other agents, then you're creating this illusion that there's no inventory. Or if you're not pulling tax records even, or, you know, using some of the tools out there to be like, okay, this house sold 10 years ago. At that point, it was the 3-bedroom, 2-bath my clients are looking for on an acre. Maybe I'll call and see if they want to sell.
Or even just as simple as that, you say, you know, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths on an acre, right? But that goes back to the filters. What would they say no to a house that was on 0.89 or 0.8? Right. Is that exactly? Is it close enough? play around with it a little bit and be like, hey, I know that this isn't quite an acre, but XYZ, these check marks, that's 80% of your list right there. And when it hits like 80% and more of their needs and wants list, that's usually a pretty good fit, especially if it falls within the price range that we're looking and it doesn't need a huge amount of work. So being flexible and reminding them that too, that like, hey, I know that this doesn't have a fourth bedroom, but it does have an office. While it doesn't have that extra closet space, you have to, we've talked about this before, like what was the episode that it was buyer motivations? Is that what it was? And we're like, you just have to create the option for them. Because sometimes people are so black and white that there's nothing showing up with these criteria. Exactly. What happens if you move the criteria? And I'm not saying change the criteria and go from a 5-bedroom house to a 3-bedroom house, but what happens when you're flexible and look outside of the, no, I don't want to live wherever.
Well, and I run into that a lot where people are like, no, we don't want to look at Gaston County. And I do give me one. Just let me show you one. Mm-hmm. And then probably 6 out of 10 times they go, oh, okay, can you show us more over here? And I'm like, see? Sure. But yeah, and that's what we call that shadow inventory, whether it's done because of lack of effort on your part or it's just, you don't know about it. But those are the FSBOs, the expired listings. That's a great place to dig too, because if it was kind of on your list or maybe a couple thousand off and it expired, reach out. You might have a deal there because if they really needed to sell, you might be able to make something work. I
think some of the problem with this market, and I say problem, is because there's so many agents that aren't actually going above and beyond, right? They're not sending out those, I have a buyer letter to the community, to the neighborhood that buyer wants to be in.
Right.
So
exactly.
You have to sometimes create your own momentum. You have to create your own inventory. You have to create your own options, because sometimes they don't just show up on a silver platter that check all the boxes XYZ. This is it. Done, deal, deliver.
Right.
Done, deal, deliver. That's not signed, sealed, delivered. There we go.
I knew what you meant.
That's where I was going with it. But I have only had a handful of clients that I've shown like 1 or 2 houses, and that was it. Right. And right now I'm definitely showing a little more.
Oh, yeah.
A little more. And partially that has to do with sellers too. This goes back to and photographers. God, like the filters and editing. Y'all are so editing, good.
Some of it is like you walk in and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I showed one in Newton here, 450,000, beautiful. It's a great community, beautiful house. The pictures are gorgeous. They've already decided that this is the one, right? We walk in the door and I'm like, oh no, this is terrible.
Yeah. I walked in one a couple weeks ago and you could tell someone had smoked in the house and they had just tried to use like Kills paint to cover it until you got to, because I was like, is it not? I'm like sniffing around this house. And then I got upstairs and you could tell they used to run the ceiling fan all the time because the rest of the ceiling was yellow except for a ring around the ceiling fan where the tar got pushed away. And I was like, oh, yep, smokers, we're out.
There it is. Nope. Yep. It's hard because the agent's like, well, it's a great neighborhood. It is a great neighborhood. But this house doesn't show like a great house for this price right now.
Right. Yep. So we kind of talked about where to find things, right? I'm looking at this list. We've looked
as far as like off market, like this goes back to building your community. Who do you know that you can reach out to that works in Morganton, that works in Hickory, and like, hey, do you have anything? Do you know of anything? Like, I have these people that are looking, or hey, do you have a buyer that would fit this criteria? Those have conversations.
Or absentee
we don't
owners,
have a lot of
like landlords.
Yes.
There's ways to find out who is like what properties are rentals. Reach out to them because I am seeing a lot of those at the market right now.
NAR, the RPR site, you can do absentee.
I think you can do that through Remine too if your MLS provides you with Remine.
And the same thing we don't get a lot of, well, I say a lot, at least in my area, a lot of rental listings on the MLS, but look for the ones that have closed in a year, right?
Yeah, look,
And
9,
find out
10
where that
months
owner's
ago,
at.
depending on what your client's timeline is. Absolutely, to see if that owner is looking to sell. And I'll be honest, I'm seeing a lot of properties right now, and maybe it's just the price point my clients are looking at, but a lot of them are investor owned and they're dumping them. So that's definitely a great way to look. So let's talk about why sellers don't want to sell, why that leads to, there's that illusion of like the golden handcuffs. You know, they all have those 2.5% mortgages that we wish we had.
Yeah. Are they assumable?
Right. Is that a VA loan? Because I have a VA buyer. We could just assume that rate. I think a lot of them think they're not going to find anything to buy, which isn't true. I think they don't realize how the equity works, and that it might be a higher interest rate, but depending on what they're looking for and how much we're putting down, we could possibly keep their payment rather similar. Or like, I know people who sold, actually I need to check in with them this week. See, they're not my clients, thank God. And not that they're bad clients. But they didn't think that they could afford today's interest rates. They ended up going new construction, but with the equity that they pulled from their house, they now have a bigger, brand new house, brand new, first owners, and it's only $150 more a month. I think a lot of people don't realize that, yes, interest rates can swing payments greatly, but they also, depending on how big of a jump you're making, it may not change your payment that much.
My sister just did that in May, and they sold theirs. They're buying a bigger place in an area that they want to be in, and their payment changed a very small amount because of the money that they made off of selling their house that they're putting down up front, and it just they managed to keep that payment very similar. So they got more house for essentially the same. Of course, like the loan's longer, the loan's bigger, that kind of thing, but the same commitment, same payment for them to carry monthly.
And it better fits their current needs. Why, if you say, I mean, because let's think about it. COVID really was 5 years ago, right? When this started, 4.5, 5. Some of these people could have been
like almost 6, because it started in like spring of 2020.
Right. So if you were a newlywed then buying your first house, you might be 2 to 3 kids in now, and you don't have enough space. It's a need. Like, you need to move. So you never know what people are experiencing, and thankfully, hopefully they've gained enough equity to make it work. But there are needs that people need. So why not make your life better? Don't look at the interest rate. Look at the monthly payment. I don't want to say date the rate, marry the house. You could refinance if rates drop and not be in a competitive market. But why sit in a house because of an interest rate when you now have 2 kids and it's a 2-bedroom house and you don't have a backyard and you suddenly adopted 3 pandemic dogs too? Like,
not the pandemic dogs. Oh my God, you're so right. But no, the other thing too that I see a lot, and I know a couple of people that are looking at this now too, same thing. They have a very attractive interest rate. Their payments are great. They are actually looking at getting a long-term tenant in the home that they own. Okay. And then once that's in place, so they'll short-term rent while we find a house.
Right. To build.
But once you have, depending on, what kind of pre-approval you're looking at, if you have a long-term tenant in your property and you're able to use that income essentially to offset that mortgage, buy another house.
Right.
That's what are they calling those? Accidental landlords?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, because it makes it, you can hold that and build wealth. If you're able to finance a bigger place, in a different area, some people are having to move for work, and still being able to take advantage of only having that 2.5% interest rate, and then pay it off and then sell it. Well, but there are ways that you're not stuck into staying in a house that doesn't work for you anymore.
Right.
But on the flip side,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just saying, on the flip side, if everything you need is where you have it, like you already have the house, I feel like there's so many people that also are like, just sell, get the bigger house, like get the new house. And sometimes that's not the answer, right?
No, not, and it
So
doesn't
you
have
have
to
to
be.
know, right? You have to know you have to know your goals, like your future. And sometimes it, like sitting still on that 3% interest rate is right for you.
Right.
So
But I
just
think
keep that in mind too.
when we're talking to agents here, the point is you need to learn to educate people. You have to be able to re-educate your database and what, like, if they want to sell or they're thinking of it, you need to be able to talk to them about that and what those numbers look like and what's out there. That, the move up math on it, you're trading equity for that better space, even if it's at the higher rate. You have to understand how the bridge loans work or the accidental landlords, temporary housing to make the numbers work for a mortgage, all of those things. You have to be able to educate them on them.
And that includes having a lender partner too that is knowledgeable enough to give them that information up front without them being like, okay, yeah, I rented it for this. And then the lender being like, actually, we needed XYZ, right? You need to have your ducks in a row. And same thing as far as communicating and educating, you need to be able to have the hard conversations too, right? I had a listing appointment with a sweet, sweet lady, God love her. She's older. She's taking care of her mom. Her husband passed away. They refinanced the house when her husband passed away to take care of her and her mom. But right now, like, she can't get out of it. And you know what I mean? Like, it financially, it's not what she wants it to be. It's not what they need it to be. So having that conversation, be like, being able to say, this is really not the best time for you right now is okay.
Right.
And then I think that sets you up for better future business dealings as well when you can come back to them in 6 months or a year and then be able to actually set them up for what they need moving forward.
Yep. Yes. And the same thing goes with talking to your buyers. You have to be able to have those conversations of, hey, at the price point you want, it may not be perfect. There are things you're going to have to work on, especially at those lower price points. But you're going to, because you're saving money at this lower price point, you will have that money in your budget to work on this. Or I love the one, you can't wait for the unicorn. It doesn't exist. Unicorns don't exist. So if you can find one that checks 80% of your boxes, get in, build the equity, be there for a couple years, and then upgrade later. I ran into a buyer once, young single guy. This was his forever house.
I love when they say forever house,
right?
And they're like 22 and not married. And like,
right. And I was like, you really think that? He was like, yeah, I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to live here. And this is where I'm going to die. And I was like, do you plan on getting married someday? Absolutely. What if your wife doesn't like it? Well, this is our house. No, can guarantee you it's not. So I had to have that conversation of like, life could look you're young. Life could look very different in 2 years. You're fresh in a career. You don't know if this is the career, trust me, I know, that you're going to stay in for the next 30 years. Are you sure you want to buy this giant house that you have to take care of by yourself? Or would it make more sense because you are a young guy who likes to go out on the weekends and sometimes during the week to find something smaller with less maintenance? And then when you find the one, you can use the equity from this to go buy the dream house. And he was like, oh yeah. I said, because if you buy this 4-bedroom house with the pool on 2 acres, you're going to be mowing yards all weekend and cleaning the pool. And your friends are only going to show up for the pool party. They're not going to show up to help clean the pool. So sometimes you have to have that conversation of, this isn't the forever, this is the stepping stone.
Yes.
And educate them as to why it's a stepping stone and how those stepping stones work.
Well, I think it's hard right now because everything is so expensive for them to be like, listen, like, this is all I can afford. So this is it, right? Like, this is all I got. But house hacking 101 is, staying in that house, building some equity.
Right.
Moving up.
Or getting a roommate or buy a duplex for your first one. There's lots of ways that buyers can make this work. So, okay. So to wrap this up, 3 causes of the inventory illusion.
You want me to go with my favorite one?
Yes.
The one that is affecting me personally and my buyers the most is the fact that the inventory that is on the market is not actually meeting those filters or the criteria that my clients or buyers in general have in their heads already, right? The houses are there. They're just not the exact thing that they had in their head or that they saw on HGTV or when they walked through a model house on a weekend that they can't afford.
Right. Oh, mine is the shadow inventory that's not showing up on the portals. So that's the FSBOs or the expireds or even the ones that are marked incorrectly. Gotta love. I looked at one yesterday. I was running comps for clients and the house said it had a full basement. And I was like, the fuck it does. I know this neighborhood. It doesn't. And so I went back to old listings. I was like, it doesn't have a basement. Even the notes in the description said crawl space. So, that's my favorite is things aren't labeled correctly or they're off market. You've got to find them. Mm-hmm. And I think the hardest one is, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say the same thing about the sellers. So go ahead.
Yeah. The hardest one, I think we agree on this, is the sellers that are sitting on the sidelines. They need to move, but they don't understand how it works. Or they're scared of making the change because of an interest rate. And they're not doing anything.
Well, and I also think along with the interest rate and afraid to find something right now, again, me hearing these things in conversations is that the timeline is so uncertain, right? Like we're not putting houses on the market and sometimes that they're under contract in a week or 2 weeks, which is great. But sometimes they're sitting, like you said, for 60, 90, 120 days, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like I think I've said this before. My very first listing was on the market for like 137 days. Nobody bat an eye.
Right.
Not one.
Right.
But now I feel like sellers are like, oh my gosh, there's so much uncertainty. They don't feel confident enough to start looking now because they don't know if their house is going to go under contract. They're afraid to not start looking because what if it does go under contract and then what happens?
Right.
Right. So they just get stuck in that. I mean, like us, like analysis paralysis. And then they're just like, you know what? We'll wait because there's nothing certain. And God, I can tell you that for a fact. There is nothing certain, and I can't promise you anything. But what I can tell you is that we are going to do our very best to walk right beside you through the whole thing, whether you're a buyer or a seller, because we can get creative with what we have out there. It's not necessarily about waiting for more inventory or waiting for the interest rates to drop, which, by the way, has nothing to do with the date of the Fed meeting. God.
Right.
Call your lender, update
all the crystal ball readers out there. I'm like, you know what? It drops when it drops, and I'll let you know when that happens.
Goodness. But seriously, we will be in the trenches with you the whole way. So if you're ready, you're ready. And to the agents, if they're ready, they're ready. If they're not, educate them, stay along with them until they are, and then put your boots on because it's a little messy out there.
Yes. And on that note, we'll see y'all next week.
Bye, guys. We just finished another episode of Contracts and Chaos, but believe me, the chaos does not stop here. So check out the show notes for our email address and where to follow us on socials, and we will see you next week.